How can Black love be healthy when it was born in a place where loving yourself could get you killed? Think about it. When you see somebody letting people treat them badly, somewhere in the back of your mind, no matter how much you feel for them, you lose a little bit of respect for them. Not because you're a bad person, but because we're wired to respect people who respect themselves. Now, put that dynamic on a plantation when Black men and women didn't even have the legal rights to their own bodies, not even their children's bodies. Black love didn't happen because of fate. This isn't some romance book. You find somebody on that plantation, you now have an ally. Someone to watch your back. Someone to share the psychological weight of that hell with. Someone whose suffering you understand because you're living it too. That's not fate bringing two souls together. That's two people in a war finding a foxhole buddy. And that's a completely different foundation than love. Because now you have to ask, if the relationship started as survival, when did it get the chance to become something more than that? Now, before we go any further, Black love does exist. But there's a reason why it's the most fought for, hard won, intentional love you'll ever see. Let's talk about who we actually were before the world got to us. Black women, in our healed state, we are intuitive, nurturing, creative, abundant, sensual, deeply connected to something greater than ourselves. Black men, in your healed state, you're not just strong physically, but mentally as well. You're able to actually sit with your emotions, process them, work through them without being consumed by them. You're wise, diplomatic, and you have that rare balance of logic and feeling. That is who we are at our core. But the plantation, it reached into both of those people and twisted it. It made us insecure, overbearing, negligent, stagnant. A woman who was never just allowed to be. We had to become something harder to survive. Black men, it made you overwhelmed, anxious, cold, repressed, withdrawn. A man who was never allowed to protect himself, let alone anyone he loved, learned to feel nothing just to get through the day. And here's what people don't want to hear. Just because time has passed does not mean you have let go of that trauma. You didn't heal it, you inherited it, and you've been passing it down ever since. Now I can keep talking in theory, but I want to show you what all of this actually looks like. Because in 1994, a movie came out that documented everything I just described without even trying to. It wasn't made to be a thesis on generational trauma. It wasn't made to prove a point about Black love. It was just telling a story. But when you know what to look for, Jason's lyric is less of a film and more of a case file. There are two brothers, Jason and Joshua. Same mother, same father, same house, same tragedy, completely different outcomes. And the reason why tells you everything about how trauma works. Their father, Mad Dog, before the war, was present, loving, the kind of father you hold on to. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie where he's out in a field of wild flowers with his boys. A small plane flies over and drops water on them, and they're just laughing and just living. That image never leaves Jason. He carries a model plane in his room all the way into adulthood. That's how much that version of his father meant to him. In that neighborhood they grew up in, it was alive. There was community, color, people outside living. It felt like somewhere worth belonging to, like something worth protecting. Hold on to that image because we're going to need it. But then Vietnam happened, and I want to be clear about what Vietnam was for Black men. You were asked to go fight for a country that didn't even see you as fully human. You watched people die, you did things you can't take back, and then they sent you home with nothing. No support, no therapy, no acknowledgement of what they put you through. Just go back to your life. Sound familiar? Because it should. That is the same thing that happened after slavery. You take a Black man, strip him of everything, his power, his dignity, his autonomy, his ability to protect the people he loves, and then you expect him to just function normally on the other side of it. The weapon changes, the wound is identical. That's what came home to Gloria and her boys. Not Mad Dog, the damage of Mad Dog. He became abusive, alcoholic, erratic, obsessed with Gloria to the point of building an altar of her in his home, carving her name into his own arm, breaking into her home and throwing roses at her, demanding she marry him. That is not love. That is a man who lost the ability to tell the difference between love and control, because everything that was supposed to make him feel like a man had been taken from him. Now here's where it gets messy. I need you to look at the neighborhood again. By the time Jason is a grown man, that same community that was once alive and thriving looks like a forgotten place. The crack era got to it. The same streets that held his childhood are now hollow. People that were once neighbors are now shells of themselves. And that is not an accident. That is a pattern. That is the same story. Black America has been living in a loop. You build something beautiful, a family, a community, a culture, and then something comes in and strips it down to its bones. It happened after slavery. It happened after Reconstruction when Black Wall Street was burned to the ground. It happened again in the 80s when crack was introduced into black neighborhoods and nobody in power did anything to stop it. The setting of this film isn't just a backdrop, it's a character. It's telling you that Jason isn't just fighting his personal trauma. He's trying to hold himself together inside a community that is falling apart around him. That is the weight this man is carrying before Lyric ever walks through the door. Now back to the family. Gloria lost the love of her life to a war that had nothing to do with her. Lost the father of her children, and then had to wake up the next day and raise two boys by herself with no time, no space, and no support to process any of it. Though she did what black women have always been forced to do, she kept moving. She kept functioning, she never stopped to grieve, and because she never dealt with her own pain, she couldn't hold space for Joshua's. Every time she looked at him, she saw Mad Dog. The anger, the drinking, the chaos. She couldn't separate her son from her trauma, which made her a mother who was physically present but emotionally unavailable. And that absence is its own kind of wound. At one point, Joshua cooks dinner for Gloria to get back on her good side. She knows he bought the food with drug money and throws it out. And Joshua, in his hurt and anger, says, "I can see why that old man would beat you." That line is devastating. Not because it's acceptable, it's not, but because you can see exactly where it comes from. That is a man who only ever saw his father express pain through violence, who never had anyone teach him another language for it. He didn't learn that from nowhere. He learned it from watching. Gloria slaps him. Joshua raises his hand to hit back. Jason stops him. Jason is always stopping something, always standing in the middle, always the wall between the chaos and whatever is left standing. Jason was old enough to remember who his father was before. He had that field of wildflowers to hold on to. So when Mad Dog came back broken, Jason made a choice. I'm going to hold this family together. He became the man of the house. Responsible, steady, repressed. Joshua didn't have that. Joshua only ever knew the abusive version of his father. He never had a before to hold on to. So he didn't hold anything together. He just absorbed it. The anger, the alcohol, the inability to regulate his emotions, the chaos. Joshua didn't choose to become his father. He just never had anyone show him anything different. Gloria said it best. Vietnam killed Mad Dog. They just didn't bury him. And the same thing was happening to Joshua. Dying from the inside, numbing everything with alcohol. He even said it himself. Liquor keeps the ghost away. That's not a man living. That's a man surviving, just like he was taught. Joshua doesn't have nightmares anymore. Not because he healed, because he stays drunk enough to keep them away. That's not peace, that's management, and there's a difference. This is what generational trauma actually looks like. A mother who loves her son but cannot see him. It's a brother who never got the chance to just be a brother. It's a man who has been so busy holding everyone else together that he never once stopped to ask if he was okay. Black women have been doing that since the plantation. Keeping everything moving, holding everyone together, never been given the permission to fall apart. Gloria didn't invent that pattern, she inherited it. And into all of that, Lyric walks in. Now before we even talk about who Lyric is, pay attention to how she arrives. She pulls up in a red pickup truck. Red is intense, urgent, guarded. That's not who she is, that's her armor. Because Lyric grew up in the same community as everyone else in this film. Her brother Alonzo is rough, dangerous, and everything the unhealed black man looks like. She has watched what these men do up close. So yes, she is nurturing, intuitive, sensual, a dreamer who knows there's a bigger life waiting for her somewhere. But she is not naive about where she is right now. She represents something specific in this film. She's the black woman who has done the work. Not perfectly, not without her own wounds, but enough. Enough to know her worth. Enough to not hand herself over easily to someone who hasn't done the same. So when Jason walks up trying to shoot his shot, she doesn't make it easy. She tells him, "If it's meant to be, you'll find me." Now remember what I said earlier. Black love was never about fate. It was about survival. It was about choice. And Lyric is essentially telling Jason, if you want me, you're going to have to choose me. Actively, repeatedly. Because I am not a placeholder and I am not desperate. Jason finds her again at the restaurant she works at. He tells her the bus won't show up on time because it's meant to be. The bus shows up immediately. She gets on and says,
"I guess it wasn't meant to be."
But Jason follows her home anyway. And that presence matters because it is not being aggressive or entitled. He is being consistent. He is showing her through his actions who he actually is. Now pay attention to what Jason drives. A blue pickup truck. Calm, stable, trustworthy. That is who Jason actually is at his core. His guard is completely down when it comes to her. She brings out a version of him that isn't managing everyone else's chaos for once. Around her, he gets to just be Jason. When he finally gets her to agree to spend time with him, he gives her a full bouquet of roses. And she takes just one flower, not the whole bouquet. That detail is so intentional. The last time we saw roses in this film, Mad Dog threw them at Gloria when she rejected him. Roses were used as a weapon to reject his love. Lyric takes one flower and leaves the rest. She is saying, I will accept some of what you're offering, but I am not going to be overwhelmed by it. I will let you in, but slowly, at a pace I can trust. She is not going to be consumed by someone else's love before she knows it's safe. That is a woman who understands that love is not an event, it's a decision you make over and over again. Jason meets her at a bridge and she talks about how much she loved watching buses. She says you never know where they're going. That is everything you need to know about Lyric. She is a woman whose entire spirit is oriented towards somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere free. Jason hears her. He actually listens. So for their next date, he makes a deal with a friend who drives a bus. They pick Lyric up at the bus stop and take her to the Greyhound station. Candlelit dinner, dancing, right there in the station, surrounded by buses going everywhere. He took her dream and made it a date. That is a man who is paying attention. They go to the bayou next. They imagine themselves in Paris together. Jason washes her feet. The camera finds two swans on the water, and swans are known for mating for life. The film is telling you exactly what this is supposed to be. But now, let's talk about Marty, because Lyric is not the only black woman in this film, and that is very intentional. Marty is Lyric's best friend. Bubbly, warm, full of energy, and she is with Alonzo, Lyric's brother, who once again is dangerous, rough, and everything the unhealed black man looks like up close. Here's what makes Marty's situation so painful. She doesn't think she can do better. This isn't a woman secretly aware of her worth but suppressing it. She genuinely believes this is her ceiling. Alonzo is what she deserves. So she performs. She laughs louder, gives more, makes herself as easy and agreeable as possible because she believes that this is the price of being chosen. That is the plantation in its most quiet and insidious form. That didn't start with Marty. That started with women who were never asked what they wanted, what they deserved, or who they were outside of what they could give somebody else. A woman who was never given the mirror to see it in the first place. Lyric and Marty are two sides of the same coin. Same community, same environment, completely different relationships with their own value. And the film shows you both without judging either one of them, because both of them make sense given where they come from. Now everything starts to unravel. Joshua gets recruited for a bank robbery at the Juneteenth festival. But even before the robbery took place at the festival itself, he is drunk, and when someone tries to stop him from stealing a teddy bear, he pulls a gun on them, in public, at a celebration. That is how far gone he is. He cannot even enjoy a moment of joy without the chaos finding its way out of him. He then botches the bank robbery completely. Shows up late, and when he does show up, everything falls apart. Even after the panic button gets pressed, he takes his mask off and robs a customer for their watch. He is then tortured by Alonzo's crew for ruining the job. They press him about why he's late. He tells them the truth. Lyric told Jason about the robbery, and Jason helped him up trying to talk him out of it. Now here's where it gets complicated. Because Joshua isn't entirely wrong. Lyric did tell Jason did try to stop him, but instead of being angry at the situation or at Jason directly, Joshua points his pain at Lyric, because she is the thing that is pulling Jason away from him. And to Joshua, Jason leaving doesn't feel like loss. It feels like the last stable thing in his life disappearing. The Juneteenth festival, Joshua had already shown us this. He jumped on a ride with Jason and Lyric, drunk, harassing her, making her visibly uncomfortable. Jason asked him to stop. He wouldn't. So Jason fought him, right there in front of everyone, and Lyric left. Not because she doesn't understand complicated families or pain, but because she asked Jason to stop and he chose to escalate instead. And a woman who knows her worth does not stay where her boundaries are treated as suggestions. This is the core tension of everything. Jason loves Lyric, but he is still so tangled up in his guilt and his obligation to Joshua that he cannot fully show up for her. He has one foot in his healing and one foot still standing in that house that night his father died. Because here is what Jason has never told anyone. The night Mad Dog died, it wasn't just Mad Dog losing control. Joshua had pulled a gun on Mad Dog. Jason tried to take the gun away. Mad Dog rushed toward them. Jason turned around and accidentally shot him. He has been carrying that ever since. Every time he enabled Joshua, every time he chose his brother over himself, over Lyric, all it comes back to is that one moment. The guilt of it, has kept him locked in place for years. Leaving feels like abandonment, and abandonment to a man carrying that much guilt feels unforgivable. Lyric listens to all of it, and then she tells him clearly that was not your fault, and you need to walk away from this pattern or we cannot be together. She is not being cold. She is being the most loving thing anyone has ever been to Jason. Honest. She is refusing to let him use her as a reason to stay small, heal, or lose me. And she means every word of it. Then Gloria sits with Jason while they're going through old photos of Mad Dog. Joshua walks up and tenses the moment he sees his father's face. Gloria looks at Jason and says what she should have said a long time ago. The war killed Mad Dog. They just didn't bury him. And then she tells Jason to go. Go to Lyric, be happy. That is a mother finally releasing her son from a guilt that was never his to carry. At the end of the movie, Joshua shows up to Alonzo's house and kills 2 of his men. He goes deeper inside looking for Alonzo and finds Lyric. He points a gun at her and asks her why she is taking Jason from him. That scene is the entire thesis of this film in one moment. Because Joshua is not a villain standing there. He is a traumatized man who has never had anything stable, who is losing the one person who has always stayed, and the only language he was ever given to express fear and pain is violence. That is not evil. That is what happens when trauma never gets addressed and finally corners itself. Jason arrives, pulls a gun on Joshua, begs him, don't make me do this again. That line carries the entire weight of this story. Joshua accidentally shoots Lyric and immediately begs Jason to shoot him. Jason ignores him, picks up Lyric, and walks out. Shortly after, Joshua shoots himself. Jason chooses her. He chooses life, he chooses healing. The last image of this film is Jason and Lyric on a bus together, leaving, and in the opposite direction, a plane flying away. That plane is his childhood, the last good memory before everything fell apart. He spent the entire film holding onto it, a model plane hanging from his ceiling. A little boy at his job was talking to him about planes right before Lyric walked in. That plane was the last piece of who he was before the world got to him, and now it's flying the other way. He is not that little boy anymore. He is not the man of the house. He is not his father's burden or his brother's savior. He is just Jason, on a bus with the woman he chose, going somewhere neither of them have ever been. This is what healed Black love looks like. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't perform. It just quietly gets on the bus and goes. And if one family carrying the trauma of one war looks like this, imagine what centuries of slavery did to all of us. We aren't just dealing with personal problems. We are dealing with a wound that was never allowed to close, passed from generation to generation, dressed up as personality traits, relationship patterns, and survival instincts that don't have anywhere useful to go anymore. Now we have the 50-50 conversations, the multiple baby mothers, multiple baby fathers, the side of the internet that has decided to hate Black men, the other side of the internet that has decided to hate Black women. Everyone pointing fingers, nobody looking in the mirror. That is not who we are. That is what was done to us. And there is a difference. Black love does exist, but it was never going to be easy. It was born in survival. It was forged in trauma. It has been passed down through generations of people who have never gotten the chance to heal before they had to love somebody else. So when you see it done right, when you see 2 Black people who have done the work, who have chosen each other consciously, who have interrupted the pattern, you are not just watching 2 people in love. You are watching generational trauma being released, and that is worth everything.